I've been obsessing over every little twitch, twinge, and weird thought about my health for as long as I can remember. So when I read about L-Theanine, I felt that small, cautious excitement you get when something seems like it might actually help. I want to tell you what I've learned, from the nerdy clinical studies to the practical stuff, and why I'm trying it as part of my do everything reasonable approach to staying calmer and healthier without making myself more anxious. L-theanine is an amino acid that's most famous for being in tea, especially green tea. And it's interesting because it seems to give you a calm, focused feeling without making you sleepy. In lab and human studies, researchers have seen L-theanine increase brain alpha waves, which are associated with relaxed attentiveness, and reduce stress markers in people facing acute stress. In other words, people's brains show a pattern consistent with being calmer and more able to focus after L-theanine. I found a number of randomized and controlled trials showing changes in brainwave activity and reductions in self-reported anxiety after single doses in mildly stressed groups. If you live with health anxiety like I do, the idea of something that reduces the immediate jumpiness without turning me into a foggy mush is huge. Clinical reviews and systematic studies suggest L-theanine can reduce stress-related symptoms and may help people with anxiety or stress-related complaints feel better overall. The evidence isn't one giant slam dunk, nothing in supplements ever is, but the trend across trials and reviews points toward a meaningful calming effect, especially at the doses researchers most often test. Beyond anxiety and calm focus, there are a few other areas where research has shown promise. Several trials and meta-analyses have looked at L-theanine for sleep and found that doses around 200 milligrams before bed can improve subjective sleep quality for some people, helping them fall asleep more peacefully and feel more rested. I like that this isn't a heavy sedative effect. It's more of a smoothing of the mind, so sleep comes without the racing thoughts that wake me up. That said, results vary by person and the studies are still limited in size and duration. There's also research suggesting benefits for cognitive performance when L-theanine is used alone or combined with caffeine. The combo, which is naturally present in tea, appears to support attention, mental clarity, and reaction time without the jittery side effects that caffeine alone can cause. That's one reason people take L-theanine during the workday. It can blunt the overstimulation of caffeine while preserving its alerting effects. Meta-analyses and recent reviews back up the idea that L-theanine plus caffeine improves attention and mood compared to placebo. So how much should you take? Clinical trials and reviews most commonly use daily doses in the 100–400 milligrams range, with many trials clustering around 200 milligrams per dose. For acute stress or pre-sleep use, 200 milligrams is a commonly studied amount that shows effects in trials. There are also studies that use lower amounts or split doses, and you'll get small amounts from drinking tea. A single cup contains somewhere between about 5 milligrams and 50+ milligrams depending on tea type and brewing, so getting a therapeutic dose usually means supplementing rather than just tea. I read a recent review and reference guides that summarize trial dosing and safety, and they converge on the 100–200 milligrams range for everyday use and up to 400 milligrams in some clinical contexts. Safety is a big question for me because worrying about side effects is practically my hobby. The good news is that L-theanine is generally well tolerated. Major health organizations and many clinical trials report few side effects at common doses. That said, there are important cautions. There's limited research on use during pregnancy and breastfeeding, and many experts recommend avoiding supplements in those cases because we just don't have enough data. Also, because L-theanine can lower blood pressure for some people and increase drowsiness when combined with sedative medicines, it's important to check with your clinician if you're on blood pressure meds, sedatives, or other prescriptions. The lactation and drug safety references I found specifically recommend talking with a healthcare provider in these situations. If you're like me and want to try L-theanine without overcomplicating things, here's the practical approach I'm using. Start low, try a well-rated brand, preferably third-party tested, and keep a tiny journal for a week or two to see how you feel. For daily daytime calm, I'm trying 100–200 milligrams in the morning or early afternoon, and on nights when my brain won't shut up, I take 200 milligrams about 30 to 60 minutes before bed. If I pair it with coffee, I take it at the same time as the caffeine to smooth things out. I'm careful to avoid taking it when I'm already on prescription sedatives or when blood pressure is unusually low. If you have chronic conditions or are on medications, run this plan past your doctor first. Where do you get it? L-Theanine is available in capsule and tablet form from many reputable supplement brands, and it's also a natural part of green and black tea. If you're trying to get a consistent therapeutic dose, supplements are the easiest route. Drinking enough tea to reach 200 milligrams would be impractical and could lead to too much caffeine depending on the brew. When shopping, I look for labels that list pure L-Theanine. Some will list sun-theanine or L-Theanine, and I prefer brands with third-party testing seals, USP, NSF, or independent lab reports, to reduce the chance of contamination or mislabeling. A couple of practical headaches to watch for. Because the supplement industry is not tightly regulated, doses and purity can vary between brands. Also, because L-Theanine interacts with caffeine and can influence blood pressure and sedative effects, be cautious with combinations and don't mix it with prescription sedatives unless a clinician clears it. And if you're pregnant, breastfeeding, or caring for newborns, the conservative advice is to avoid it until you've spoken with your healthcare provider. Those are the main don't be careless points I remind myself of whenever I feel tempted to just try every supplement under the sun. What realistically changed for me after a few weeks? The first thing I noticed was smaller spikes of panic, that gut hit feeling when my mind fixates on some possibility. The edges of those moments felt a little softer. My sleep onset was sometimes quicker on nights I took 200 milligrams, and the times I paired it with a small amount of coffee, I felt more focused but not wired. If you're considering trying it, here's a quick checklist I use for safety and sanity. Tell your doctor, especially if you take meds. Choose a third-party tested product. Start with 100 milligrams to see how you respond. Keep a short symptom and sleep log for 2 weeks, and avoid use during pregnancy or while breastfeeding unless a clinician advises otherwise. If you have low blood pressure or are on blood pressure meds, ask your clinician before trying it. At the end of the day, I still manage a lot of health anxiety. Supplements aren't a cure and I don't expect miraculous fixes, but L-Theanine gives me a low-risk, evidence-backed option that's consistent with what the clinical literature says. It can reduce acute stress responses, support calm focus, especially with caffeine, and sometimes improve sleep quality at commonly studied doses around 100-200 milligrams. For someone like me who chronically overthinks every feeling, that kind of gentle help is worth a careful try, and I wanted to share what I found so you can decide for yourself.